every once in a while, I like to go back and talk about a subject that is near and dear to my heart, and that is eating disorders and how we see eating disorders as any other addiction. And so, what I want to talk about, it's not what we're eating, but what's eating us. And some of you have heard some of these same things that I want to share this morning, but I think I learn every time I kind of study to do one of these. So, what I want to talk about is how the feelings, that's what we have to treat, is the feelings. Once the food gets in order, then the feelings are, once the food gets in order, it creates an opening for those feelings to come up. Once we get sober in every addiction, every addiction, because as long as we're using anything, and I love what my daughter Kim says all the time, as long as we're using anything to alter our mind, alter our brain, we're not sober, we're not abstinent. And so, and that I think includes codependency. We just have to treat it all, folks. And in order to create an opening for the feelings to come up, because I believe that is what drives the addiction. It does not cause an addiction. If you have an addiction, whether with food, alcohol, drugs, process addiction, tobacco, whatever it is, it's about the brain chemistry. Our brains are different from those of normal people. I absolutely believe that. So that is the physical aspect of it. And a lot of times people with eating disorders maybe they're not alcoholic themselves, but they come from alcoholic families. Not all the time, but sometimes. And sometimes you go back 3 generations and you can see alcoholism. Alcoholism many times skips a generation. And so maybe your grandparents were alcoholic, your parents made a decision they were not going to drink, and they didn't become alcoholic. And here you are, 3rd generation, and all of a sudden out pops an eating disorder. And I believe it is about the brain chemistry, and I think can be very much hereditary. So we're going to talk about feelings and what we get addicted to and how we can treat it. And I've got a lot of people on this screen that are treating it every day. Every addiction, many addictions, and I've got some on this call that has not, some, and y'all know who you are, have chosen not to treat it. But you're here, so what that says is I'm getting ready to treat whatever I have. If you're on this, you're gathering information, and you're gathering information, you may not be treating all of your addictions today, but you want to, or you wouldn't be on here. So Misty and I just read out of the Al-Anon book. I want to read this to you. I really did like this. I want to start off with this. And it says, I'm not going to read all of it, just part of it. My friend Misty and her family have been going through, and I think everyone in the neighborhood has been going through a lot of grief and people at Shades, because we lost our dear friend Doug, who was Misty's father, and who worked for us at Shades for a while. And so there's been, feelings of depression and sadness and grief. So I want to read this to you. We all go through periods of sadness, lethargy, and grief. That's part of life. But depression can become a habit that perpetuates itself unless I intercede by acting on my own behalf. We have to act on our own behalf. The depression is not just going to go away magically. You go to a doctor, you describe your symptoms, and they, will diagnose you, with depression or anxiety or whatever, and the diagnosis is good. All well and good, but it's what, and they will probably prescribe medication. That is just a small part of it. Medication helps. It brings you up to baseline. It doesn't raise you up, drop you down. Medication helps, and it will create an opening for you to begin to really work on what's underneath, that sadness, the depression, and where it's coming from. So this bottom says, today's reminder, there are times when I have to hurt through a situation, and when this happens, the choice is not whether to hurt or not hurt, but what I do while I'm hurting. What do you do while you are hurting? What do you do when you're in pain? What do you do when you are, full of anxiety or depression or sad or lonely or on and on? I have not felt depression in years, but for the last month I have had some low-grade depression. I don't know what it is. I don't know where it's coming from, but it just kind of feels like that. There's nothing wrong, but there's not a whole lot right. I don't know. It's just that low-grade depression. And I'm feeling better the last few days, and I have done what I recommend other people to do. I write about it, I talk about it, I do everything I can do to get out of myself, and when I do that, I get out of the depression. So, the last few days I'm much better, and yesterday, I had a great day, and today I'm good. So, if you have been diagnosed with depression and anxiety, we just have to treat it. We treat it every day, and it is a lot of times, or is the underlying feelings of addictions, because when we have feelings that feel bad, if you've got the brain chemistry of an addict, what do? We find something to ease the pain. And if you're in recovery and you're abstinent, you don't get that privilege of using something to ease the pain. We have to walk through it. We have to feel the feelings and get past it. And so you write about it, you talk about it, you pray about it, you surrender it to God. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today, is the feelings and what really drives the addiction. With the thought in mind, the brain chemistry is what makes the difference between an addict and a non-addict. We have a disease that's twofold. It is a physical component, and if you're a compulsive overeater, or you are a binge eater, or an anorexic, the solution is pretty simple. You get the food in order. Now, for when you have an eating disorder, that sounds simple, and it's the hardest thing you'll ever do. But if it is just that, if it was just a physical component, those of you that are compulsive overeaters, which I was, you can go down to Weight Watchers. They have a great program to lose weight. There's diets all over the world that you can go on to lose the weight. Or if you're an anorexic, get someone to sit with you, and you just start eating, refeeding yourself. Or if you're a binger and a purger, stop the binging and purging. And I'm making this sound like it's so easy. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do in your life if you have any addiction. It is the hardest thing in the world, whether it's alcohol, drugs, or whatever, is to stop the addiction. But once you stop the acting out of the addiction, that's when the real work starts. That's when the real work starts. Because when we stop any addiction, what we do is we create an opening for the feelings to come up. Do y'all agree? Shake your heads if you agree. And this is why people switch off from one addiction to the other, is because recovery, early sobriety, does not feel good, because those feelings begin to come up. And that's what we have been stuffing down with whatever addiction that we have, and for the compulsive overeater, the only thing that we need to do here at Shays when we get a compulsive overeater here is to get their food in order. Once the food gets in order, the anger comes up. The anger comes up, and a lot of times, and of course, that's what we want as clinicians. We want the anger, the feelings to come up so we can help people deal with those feelings, because the feelings have been there forever. They've just been medicated. So, my work a lot of times has been with the staff, because what I tell the staff is let the clients have their feelings. Let them be angry. Let them be as angry as they want to be. Let them slam doors. Let them stomp around. They do not have to be happy, joyous, and free. Good Lord, they're in treatment. Let them have their feelings. And what usually comes up for a compulsive overeater is the anger. The anger a lot of times has been buried so deep that it takes a while for it to come up. And once we really help them get to it, it looks more like rage. And usually that rage is connected with some form of childhood abuse. And it doesn't take a whole lot in a day of a life of a child for those feelings to go inside their heart and tell them that they're not worth anything. So when, as you know, we grow up and we feel like we're not worth much, and we find a substance that takes, that takes away that pain, we start using, and it makes us feel better. And for an anorexic, the only thing we have to do with an anorexic to bring up the feelings is to get them to eat. Once they start feeding themselves, the anger comes up in big time, because, and then the pain, the sadness, and then the resistance, and then the denial, and all of that goes with anorexia or any eating disorder. And then with the bulimics, and, I'm a recovering bulimic, when we eat massive amounts of food, by gosh, it helps. It pushes those feelings down. And then the thought gets in our brain, oh my gosh, I'm going to gain weight, I'm going to gain weight, I'm going to gain weight. And we have to get the food out, through purging somehow, through laxatives or over that porcelain throne, or through, through exercise or something. And that's where the bulimics get their biggest, I keep saying me, I am recovering bulimic, but I'll tell you, I took that disease to about as far as anybody can take it. And I'm very grateful for almost 36 years of recovery from bulimia, or I would be dead today had I not found recovery. But nevertheless, when you stop that behavior of any sort, of any addiction, the feelings are going to come up, and that's when we have to deal with it. And like I said, we talk with the staff, let the clients have their feelings. They don't need to be happy, joyous, and free all the time. If they can work through those feelings and get to the other side, they will not have to use a substance to cover over those feelings. Now, that all just sounds so easy. And it is a process. It's a process, and it takes a long time. But the good news is we just have to do it today. Today, a heartbeat at a time. We can't do some of these things forever. When I got home from treatment, September the 19th, October the 19th, got home on my oldest daughter's birthday, October the 19th of 1985, that was in October. And my biggest concern was, what are we going to do for Thanksgiving? I knew I couldn't cook Thanksgiving dinner like I used to, because I made it a grand deal, and everybody came to our house to eat. I knew I couldn't do that anymore. So we have to start looking at how we want to live our lives different in abstinence, sobriety, and in recovery. We can't keep living the way that we did before, because it doesn't work. It does not work. Everything has to change. Everything has to change in recovery. And I talked last week about college kids, and I think it could be boys too, but it's really, more talked about freshman girls gaining that freshman 15. It's almost a joke, and they joke about it. Well, my daughter's going to go off and gain the freshman 15, and they make very light of it. I think there needs to be more talk about that, and what sets them up to start that eating. And I have several thoughts on it. One thing, a lot of them, kids, girls who get off to college, maybe they have been very active in high school, played sports, maybe been cheerleaders, did a lot of active things. they get to college, they're a freshman. Maybe they're not playing sports, and they're certainly, most of them, you know, they're not cheerleaders. And so, in a lot of times, I think, and I'm sure colleges and universities address this, but I think the main reason that kids gain that excess weight is, one thing, the food is so available. They can get anything they want, night or day, anything, and then they can order into those dorms. They can eat anything they want. But I think the primary reason is adjusting to college, being away from home maybe for the first time, having those feelings and not knowing what to do with them, being lonely. Yeah, I think they even get lonely for parents. I think they get lonely for their moms and their dads, and the routine of home life. And, you know, a lot of times they won't admit that, but I think they're dealing with feelings, with real feelings. And maybe for the first time, because if they've been home, you know, and have never been away from home, and, you know, experiencing that loneliness and all, and the food is readily available. So I'm sure universities are talking about that, but I would really hope that they will quit making a big joke about the freshman 15. Kids can go to college and not ever have to gain an ounce. They don't. And because a lot of people, and we've treated many of them, their obesity and then the overeating, what can lead to binging and purging. They teach each other how to purge in college or restrict. And so many of the folks that come to us, a lot of times their eating disorder starts in college. So anyway, I just wanted to address that and really hope that college kids will give themselves permission to have their feelings. You know, college is made out to be, the most wonderful time in the year, and, you know, and all of that, and it can be, but they also need to allow themselves to feel the pain of the loneliness and being on their own, and, you know, not being a part of, and having to get out and make new friends and all of that. So I want to talk about how you treat an eating disorder. I mean, I could talk about this forever because it's my favorite subject, because I almost died of an eating disorder, and so I want to talk about it a little more. And a lot of you on here know it, and you treat it, and some know it and you don't treat it, and some have relapsed, and, you know, and when I hear people relapsing and people not treating it, what I make up, and this is me, what I make up about it is that they've never accepted that they have the disease of an eating disorder. We can admit it, you know, and that's what the first step says, we admit it. We can admit till hell freezes over. Well, I've got it, you know, I admit I'm a compulsive overeater, I'm a bulimic, I'm an anorexic, I'm an alcoholic, I'm this, I'm that. We can admit it forever, until we actually accept it and know that we have a disease, whether it's sex addiction, gambling, whatever, until we admit it, and then until we accept it and start taking action, we're going to die of the disease. I mean, you can admit it and, you know, be on your deathbed. Yep, I've got a disease, but I'm going to starve myself to death. You know, we've got to admit it, we've got to accept it, and we've got to treat it. So I know I'm sounding like I'm preaching, and I am. And I'll tell you the reason that I like to talk about eating disorders periodically. Because I went all of my life from the age of 4, when my eating disorder started, until 1985, until I learned about a treatment center in Los Angeles that treated eating disorders, treated folks like me, compulsive overeaters. I never had one professional ever say, you have a disease called compulsive overeating. You are morbidly obese. I've never had one doctor, and I'm not blaming them. I don't think they knew. And it's still not considered. You know, we have a diagnostic tool that we go to look up addiction or diseases, where we can, you know, fill out the paperwork for our clients. You will not find anything about obesity or compulsive overeating or about binging and purging. A little bit they have added called binge eating, but they do not address the obesity side, and that's what's killing most of America. I mean, it still amazes me. So I'll get off of that, and because I really want to give you some ideas about those of you that are in relapse or have never addressed your eating disorder. Well, I'm going to give you some tips, and then those of you that are new in recovery, maybe this will help you. Okay, so physical abstinence. We got to get physical abstinent first, and what that means is to develop a sound food plan. Diets do not work. I wrote a whole book about it. Diets don't work. I could give you a diet. I lost 150, 120, 130 pounds 5 different times and gained it back. So if you want to know how to lose weight and quickly, I can tell you how. But I couldn't keep it off. I never could keep it off until I accepted it as a disease and start treating it as serious as it is. So the first thing is abstain from dieting. Abstain from dieting and develop a sound food plan and a sound exercise plan. And when you do that, what it's going to do, you feed yourself 3 times a day and then live your life in between. And that's when the feelings are going to come up, and you have to deal with the feelings. And some food plans call for a snack at night. If yours doesn't, you know, you find a food plan that works, not a diet, a food plan. And then the second thing is pre-plan your meals. You can't just leave it to chance. You can't just leave it to chance. And do not count calories. You know, that gets into that focus, and I've got some folks on here who know what I'm talking about. And personally, I've done it so many years. I could sit down at a meal anywhere, you know, out to eat at someone's house or anywhere. I could sit down and I could tell you exactly within 5, 2 or 3 calories, exactly how many calories is in the food. I mean, we become masters of it, those of us who have eating disorders. And, you know, we can tell everybody, you know, how much calories is it. And so a food plan is you don't count calories. You get a food plan. There's over 240 wonderful foods to choose from. You know, you don't have to just be, you know, just choose a few things. But we have to pre-plan meals. And, you know, one of the things that's a benefit for me, one of the really good things about owning an eating disorder unit or treatment center is I get Meals on Wheels. I get my food every day from across the street, and I am very grateful for that. I mean, I can cook. I'm a good cook. I don't like to. My husband and I raised 7 kids, and we never had just 7 at the house. There'd be kids hung out at our house, and I cooked all the time. I've cooked enough to last me a lifetime. Thank you very much. Occasionally, I will cook a pot roast for my kids, but it's been a while. I'll wait till the fall. It's too hot now. So, but pre-plan your meals. That takes time. I'll tell you what I did is on Friday, I'd make out my menu. I'd make out the grocery list. I would shop on Saturday. I would chop and cook and prepare food on Sunday. I would freeze enough for the week because I was working downtown at a treatment center. I take out every morning what I needed for lunch, and then I knew exactly what I was going to cook for my husband and my daughter that was still at home and myself. I had to know. I could not leave it to chance because I could not hang out in grocery stores. It's like an alcoholic, newly sober, hanging out at bars. Why would an alcoholic hang out at a bar? I didn't need to hang out in a grocery store. I'd go in quickly. Now you don't even have to. You can call and order the food. You don't even have to go. You've got it so much easier than I had it early on. You buy your groceries, go pick them up, and you don't have to walk down those aisles where that food is calling your name, Also, if you do go into a grocery store, shop on the outer perimeters. If you'll notice, that's where they keep all the fresh food, the produce. Watch any layout of any grocery store. It's on the perimeters. You don't need to go down those metal aisles very often. Stay out of those metal aisles, because that's where all those, all of that stuff that's in this pre-packaged food, all of those goodies, stay out of those metal aisles. And another thing, you've got to figure out what you are addicted to. Nobody can tell you, and you may not be addicted to anything. What my main thing was, I was addicted to volume, a lot of food. I look at what I eat today, and Misty weighs and measures my food, and I stay on the same food plan that y'all stay on over there. And sometimes, it's too much. And I thought, in my disease, I would eat 3 or 4 helpings and then eat all of the leftovers. My kids had very few leftovers because I would eat them up, and I'd eat off their plates and all that. So pre-plan your meal and don't count calories. Another thing, number 3, is stay off the scales. I've got somebody that I'm looking at right now that I know that, like me, I jump on, jump off, jump on, jump off. If I lost a pound, oh my God, I would feel good. End of the day, I'd gain, I'd get back on the scale, but I would be up 2-3 pounds. Well, I just frankly want to go kill myself. So anyway, it's do not focus on the scale. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. Get someone to blind weigh you about once a month. Or see your weight once a month. Keep up with it, and then you will know if you're staying on a meal plan, because you're going to lose 1 to 2 pounds a week on the Shades food plan. Now, I will tell you, the Shades food plan is not the end-all, be-all. There's good food plans everywhere, and but ours is just a basic, healthy food plan, and we do no sugar, no flour, no gluten, no caffeine. And I'm not saying that you cannot eat sugar. I'll tell you how you know if you can eat sugar or any other thing is, what does your body tell you? If you can eat sugar, if you can eat a cookie or a piece of cake and walk away and leave the rest, you're probably not addicted to sugar. But if you think about it and have that mental obsession and you want more and you want more, and I will tell you, the craving isn't set up until you put it in your body, whether it's alcohol, sugar, or whatever. Once you put it in the body, one craving calls for 2, and 2 for 3, and 3 for 4, up to 1,000. You want more, more, more. Now, if you're an addict, you have the mental obsession because you remember what you got out of using a substance, that sense of ease and comfort. So when that mental obsession comes up and you start thinking about that certain thing that you would like to eat or drink, or those calls, those sex calls that you would like to make, or whatever, you stop in the midst of it. You get on your knees and you ask God to remove that. And then you get up off your knees and off your rear end and you go to work. You call somebody, you call your sponsor. And then you call somebody else that you might be able to help. Call a newcomer, call a stranger, call anybody, anything to break that thought pattern in your brain, and it will work. Okay, so, look at what your binge foods are, and at first what I'd say is don't eat binge foods. But this is a disease. The food is much different than alcohol. And there are no good or bad foods. Food is food. And as you go into the spiritual part of the program, the foods that you thought that you could never eat in recovery, you might be able to. For instance, I could not keep peanut butter in the house because I would eat the whole jar. I would eat it. A 3-pound, I'd buy the biggest, and I would eat every bite of it. My little kids, they could never had to complain about getting peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for school because their mother ate up the peanut butter. You know, today, I mean, I've got a jar of peanut butter in my cabinet right now. And I decided for breakfast that I was going to eat a banana because I need the potassium. And I put the measurement of peanut butter on that banana, and that's what I ate. And that jar is still in there. There's a little gone out of the top. I could not have done that before. So as you heal spiritually and emotionally, the foods that you used to couldn't eat, you might be able to eat. But what I say is if you're going to add back anything, like your binge foods or anything, do it with intention. Do it with having someone to witness what you're eating. Because we're sick as we are secret, and most of us would eat those binge foods in secret. We would never tell anybody. I never told anybody that I would eat so many certain kinds of candy bars, 3 or 4 of them a day. I didn't tell anybody that. It was a secret, and I'd hide all the wrappers so no one would ever see it. So whatever you eat and add back into your food plan, any binge food or anything, do it with intention. And let someone witness it, and then check your body out. Check, does that set up a craving that you want more? If it does, you probably need to leave it out of your food plan. Okay, so that is pretty basic how you recover physically. Is you get the food in order. You get sober around the food. Don't eat in between meals. Because when you're eating in between, when you have what I call walking hunger, where you're just walking around in the kitchen and you open the refrigerator and you look at that, it's kind of like a sex addict cruising Main Street. You know, eating disordered people, we cruise the kitchen, we cruise the refrigerator and the cabinet, and we're just looking for that one something that will hit the spot. That is not about feeding yourself. That is about feeding the feelings, feeling the emotions. It's not about hunger. It's about, or if you're the other way and you're in an anorexic or bulimic, and it comes mealtime and you don't want to eat it anyway, because that is how you stay sober around the food. Okay, so then, and I'll hurry through this. There, we have this 2-part disease. It's called physical. I just talked a little about it. And then that's the mental and emotional part. Therein lies the disease. The disease is between our 2 ears. It is in the mental and the emotional side. That takes time, and you've got to absolutely spend the time on that mental and emotional side. If you don't, you may get your food in order, but you'll switch off to some other addiction. Anything to ease the pain if you don't get into good mental and emotional recovery. So the first thing to abstain from is from negative self-talk. Stay out of your own head. Y'all ever get up in your head and tell you things about how awful you are? Sarah stretching her neck. Do you ever tell yourself how awful, bad, awful, and wrong you are? Stay out of the self-talk. And if it comes back, get on that phone and spit it all out to a sponsor. I used to do that, and I'd call my sponsor, who was so patient with me, and I would just spit all that stuff out in my head, and she'd say, well, good God, girl, how do you come up with all that stuff? But if I didn't spit it out and tell it to someone else and write about it and tell it again and tell it again, you do not need to tell your family, by the way. Leave that to a sponsor. Do not spew all of this stuff out to your family. They have put up with your shit long enough. Do not, excuse my language, treat yourself appropriately, and that is with a good sponsor, a good therapist, and don't go tell your family all of your, what's wrong with you. They don't care, or if they care too much and they want to fix it. And, that's what we call codependency. So be careful who you're talking to. And then, because, when you have a good sponsor, they will listen and listen and listen. And I'll tell you, 9 times out of 10, they will forget what you told them, because they are so busy helping other people that, they may not forget it, but they don't go tell anyone. This is you talk about the best society in the world is a 12-step program. If you don't have a sponsor, you are missing out on one of the biggest things in the program that will help a good sponsor, because that good sponsor, if you don't have a relationship with God, that sponsor's going to try, that he or she will help you on that journey of finding a power greater than yourself. So another thing, number 2, stop pleasing other people. Abstain from pleasing other people, particularly your eating disorder people, or eat up with codependency. Stop trying to take care of everyone, pleasing everyone, saying yes to everything. If your family is going out to eat and they're going to a place that you cannot go, tell them, I can't go there. My little husband, bless his heart, as long as he drove, after I came home from treatment, he never once picked out a restaurant. He would drive up if we were out of town. He said, honey, you go look at the menu. Of course, I'd go look at the menu, and then I'd have to go see how clean the restaurant was. But it was mainly the menu. And I had to do that. I had to do that for the first 5 or 6 years. I had to be very careful where I ate. And this is your responsibility. It's not your family's. It is not, or your friends, it's yours. And if you can't eat someplace, tell them, or you go eat somewhere else, or you stay home. Because what will happen, and this happens with eating disorder clients, we get our feelings hurt over the food. Any of y'all ever get your feelings hurt over the food? If you go someplace where they don't have your food, or you can't find a restaurant, or you're having to go somewhere where they don't have the right food, that's not on them, folks. It's on you. Prepare yourself. I have taken food to a restaurant. Not all of it, but maybe a protein or something that I knew that they wouldn't have, because I wanted to go with my family, So take care of yourself. It's not anybody else's place, and your place is not to please them at the expense of losing your abstinence. And you can't lose your abstinence. It's not like you've got this little puppy dog that's off the leash and you lose the dog. That's not what abstinence is. How you lose your abstinence is you get off your meal plan and you relapse. One time you stray off of the path. You just kind of get off the path. If you keep getting off the path, you're in relapse. It's about getting back on track. And sometimes we have many people doing this, coming back and doing a 4-day for the sole purpose of detoxing from the food. Maybe they've been in good recovery for years, and they get off the track with food and can't get back on the track. And so they come here and do a 4-day and get detox from the food. And we have new people coming to get the food in order. And some of them will come into treatment, some of them don't need to. And they can go and get a good sponsor and get in good recovery. Okay, number 3, abstain from shutting off feelings. Feel the feelings. If you don't, you'll get back into another substance, or you'll trade off to a substance. Feel the feelings. And how you feel them is you allow yourself to just feel. And it's not easy to feel the pain. You write about it, talk about it. Feel the pain, feel the sadness, feel the hurt, feel the guilt, feel the pain. or you will use of it. Pain is what takes us back to the substance every time, the feelings will. So that's why I call it a disease of the feelings. It's really, addictions are diseases of the feelings. It's woe is me. Oh, I'm feeling so bad. My feelings are, I hurt. Somebody hurt my feelings. And so give me a milkshake or give me a banana split or do this or, it will trigger that brain or give me a drink. That's why we have to go to meetings and get with like kind and talk about feelings. You go into any 12-step meeting and you talk about something that you did and that you feel real bad about yourself and blah, blah, blah. I assure you what they'll do is they'll all laugh because they identify with you and they've done the same thing. And everybody will laugh together. And then you report something good that's happened, like you've had a mended relationship with one of your kids or with your parents or something, and you talk about that and you cry, and they'll cry along with you because they remember those relationships that were broken and how they were mended. So that's why meetings are so important, is to share those feelings with each other people who care and have the same feelings. So the third thing is spiritual recovery. Live life according to your personal value system. Your value system. Not Granny's or the United States or your husband's or your mother's or whatever. Your value system. And if your value system has gone astray, you might want to check your value system and upgrade it a little bit. But live your life like your value system. If your value system doesn't include going out and to nightclubs and doing this and doing that and doing that, if you go, you're going to feel guilty. And if you feel guilty, it'll probably take you back to your substance. If your value system doesn't include, and today's time is, it's entirely different than what some of us were raised in. I never knew anyone that lived with someone before they got married. I never knew anybody. People didn't do that, or people I knew. Now it's like, it's general practice. People do that. I guess they want to practice before they get married. I don't know, but I see a lot of that. But if that's not in your value system, to live with someone or have sex with someone outside of marriage, you better check into your value system, because that is what will take you back to your substance. Not the church's value system or anybody else's, your own. So check your value system. Another thing is know that God lives and works through people. You got to be around other believers, people who, this is why I keep talking about the program. We recommend, if you're a church goer and you enjoy going to church and you are a believer, get back into your church, but go, and you might not be able to go to those socials right at first. There's always a lot of food in most churches, particularly Southern Baptist, but anyway, so get with people where you can go and worship the God of your understanding. If you're not a church goer, that's all right. You can find spirituality. You can find it in the 12-step programs. They're the most spiritual people I've ever known and ever met are in 12-step programs. If you need both or want both church and a 12-step program, go. I do not believe in mixing the two. I'm very much against mixing the 12-step program with church, and that's just my belief. And I'm not going to get into any more of that. I think it's separate, and I think it needs to be kept separate. So I could get myself in a lot of trouble if I keep talking about that, so I won't. But a 12-step program, you can go, and there's other believers there, and the whole essence of a 12-step program is finding a way to enlist the aid of a power greater than ourselves. And the way to do that, you work those first 11 steps, you work those 12 steps, and it will march you up face to face with your God of your understanding. There's zero failure to it. The only failure is people fail to work the steps with a good sponsor. Okay, and then, this will, what that will do, you'll develop a relationship with a power greater than yourself. And then the last thing I want to talk about is to get abstinent from the control. Addicts, eating disorder people, particularly eating disorder people, I don't know, maybe all addicts, it's the big C, control. Most of your anorexics, that is the biggest problem they have, is control. Compulsive overeaters, any eating disorder. I've never met an eating disorder person yet that wasn't a control freak. And a lot of addicts. And so recovery is about abstaining from control. It does not guarantee, when you're in control, it does not guarantee a life free of pain. What it will do, it will give you a life of pain and discomfort. You will not like yourself or the other person that you're trying to control because they will not do what you want them to do. So control, give up control, put the control or the need to control in God's hands. So I know this sounds like I've gone to preaching, but I think every once in a while we have to go back to the basics and really look at what recovery is and to get back on track. Because if we don't have recovery, if we're an addict of any sort, if we don't have recovery, we're not going to have life. And we may live a long time, but we will not have the joy of life. We won't have the joy. So let's talk, any questions, comments, talk about if you've had problems with anything and that has led you back to your substance or, all right, who would like to speak first? Hello.